SSL is one of the very common ways of implementing infrastructure security on a website. Now what we'll do in this session is that we'll try to understand that how we can leverage this infrastructure security, that is SSL security, on WCF services. In our previous video, we have already said that there are two kinds of security mechanisms you can apply on WCF. One is the transport security, that is your infrastructure security, and the other one is the message security. So in this video, we'll try to understand that how we can implement SSL infrastructure security on WCF services. So what we'll do is that we'll create a simple WCF service. We will host that WCF service on a SSL website, and then we will consume the WCF SSL service on a simple client and see that how things work. The first step is basically to go and create a simple WCF service. So you can see that over here we have created a simple WCF service called as WCF WS HTTPS, and this service, this WCF service, we are going to host on IIS using SSL. Now the next step is basically we need to go to the web config file. So let's go to the web config file of your WCF service, and we need to make some certain changes here in order to ensure that this WCF service will be hosted properly on the IIS using SSL. So the first step is basically to go and specify your security mode in your bindings. So currently I'm using WS HTTP binding. So you can see that I've specified that my bindings will be having a transport security, and basically at this moment I'm not going to specify any kind of credential types. In other words, there are not going to be any kind of username and password. This WCF service will just leverage the SSL security, and this configuration I have named as transport security. So once you have created this, once you have specified your security mode and your client credential type, this binding you need to specify it in your endpoint. So you can see that in my endpoint I have specified the binding configuration as transport security, which is nothing but my WS HTTP binding, which is now customized to use security mode transport. The second thing is I have given the address URL as HTTPS. So you can say that I'm saying that yes, my address will be having HTTPS on it. The third step is basically I have in my binding I have defined the binding as MEX HTTPS and not MEX HTTP. And finally in my service meta tag I need to specify that HTTPS get enabled is true. So first I went and I configured my WS HTTP binding to support transport security, and this new binding which is created I have specified in the binding configuration. Second step, I have gone ahead and I've defined my address as HTTPS. Third step, I have basically in my endpoint, in my binding I have specified as MEX HTTPS, and finally in the service meta tag, that is the fourth step, I have defined that HTTPS get enabled is equal to true. So basically in your web.config file you need to specify these four important changes. Now once you have defined these four important changes, the next step is basically to create your SSL certificate and host this WCF service on IIS using using the SSL. Now the next step is basically to go and create SSL certificate. Now definitely SSL is not a free thing, you need to pay for it, but Microsoft has given a way to create a dummy SSL certificate for testing, which you can do by using the makecert.exe. So what we'll do is that we will take the following command, which you can see on the notepad. You can basically pause the video and note down this command, and we will create the certificate. We'll run this command on the Visual Studio command prompt. So go to start, go to Visual Studio command prompt, click on it, come to the command prompt, copy this command. In case you are seeing this video, then basically you can make a pause and write down this whole command. Now the important part in this command is the certificate name. So at this moment the certificate name is my PC name, compact-jz p37md0, enter. So you can see that my certificate has been created. Now the next step is we need to go to Internet Information Server, go to our site on which we are going to host our WCF service, and ensure that we assign this SSL certificate to the IIS. So go to Directory Security, go to Server Certificate, next assign an existing certificate, and we can see that we have our SSL certificate compact-jzp37md0. Now remember that you can see, over here you can see a lot of other certificates with the same name, but those are created by me for testing purpose, so don't get confused with that. So click next, and yes, the port on which SSL runs is 443, so keep it as it is and finish. And the next step is you need to just ensure that all of your communication happens through the SSL certificate feature just installed. So we have clicked on edit and we have checked this required secure channel SSL checkbox. So say OK and OK. So now that we have configured our IIS, it's time to publish the WCF service. So let's first go and build the WCF service, build solution, and build publish WCF service. So you can see that I'm publishing the WCF service on the same IIS directory which is just configured for SSL. So publish. Now once we are done with the publish, the next step is let's go and browse our service. So let's click on the my website, and that's my service. So let me just browse the service. Now one thing which should happen is basically it should say that you cannot browse this service without using SSL. So you can see that it has given me the same error. It is telling me that you cannot browse this page over an unsecured channel. So let's go and make it HTTPS. Because this is a dummy certificate, so it's saying that there's a risk. So let's say that I understand the risk. So we should be able to browse our service. So you can see that we are now able to browse a service using HTTPS. So this is confirmed that our service is now working properly on the HTTPS protocol. It's time to now go and consume this HTTPS service in our client. So what we'll do is that we'll create a simple ASP.NET page which will consume our HTTPS localhost /service1.svc. Now let's go ahead and consume the SSL WCF service. So you can see that I have created a simple web application here with a default.aspx page. So let's right click, add service reference, and let's paste the address. So you can see that we are trying to consume the HTTPS localhost /service1.svc and say go. Now you'll get an error here saying that Visual Studio has detected a problem with the site security. This has happened because our certificate is not valid. We have used the makecert.exe, and makecert.exe basically creates a dummy certificate. But we'll go ahead because we know that we are doing this for testing purpose. Do not try to install SSL certificate created by using makecert.exe on production servers. This is only for testing purpose. And let's say OK. Now let's go to the behind code. So in the behind code we'll consume the WCF service. So you can see that for the first thing is we have imported the namespace to get all the necessary WCF service references of the proxy object, and then we have created the service client object of the WCF proxy, and we are calling the getData method to display the response. Now you can see that we have an additional function here called as ignore certificate error handler, and this function is basically tied up to the server certificate validation callback event. What it says is basically that ignore any kind of errors thrown by the SSL certificate. As we know that we have created a certificate which is dummy certificate because we have used the makecert.exe. So basically this event says that basically any kind of errors which are created due to this certificate, please ignore it. Probably you can remove and comment this statement when you go on the production server. But at this moment for testing, we would need this code. So now let's go and run this code. So basically this code is having a WCF proxy reference of a SSL hosted WCF service. So it should just display us 12. So you can say that it says you have entered 12. So basically what we have done is we have consumed the WCF HTTPS service in our web application ASP.NET, in our ASP.NET web application. So I hope that you have enjoyed this session. In the coming up session, we'll try to understand that how we can implement dual security. That means we want to implement transport security, probably using SSL, and second, we would also like to implement some kind of username and password, which validates that if this user is authenticated and authorized from our system. So see you in the coming sessions where we'll discuss about this dual security.